about it soon. But just to give you a brief idea, the vision of this method is to ensure that your training just isn't another online training course, but rather that it becomes an engaging and high-value learning experience that creates real impact and delivers concrete outcomes. You can change the slide, Marcelo. Thank you. So then you might wonder, like this little fella, it's actually in it for you to enroll. You might have taken part of multiple sustainability courses in the past, but for that reason, I also would like to ask you, how many of you have signed up for an online course that you haven't finished? Feel free to use the reaction button if that has occurred, or raise a hand. Well, it happens. And the key is really that the sustainability training, they need to be engaging, they need to be relevant, and they need to be result-driven, and add value to gain traction and generate an impact. You can change the slide, Marcelo. Thank you. So the idea here is that we will enroll you all by next week in the e-learnings that we have created for municipalities and businesses. And you will have around, I think it's until mid-February to finish it. And then we will have a follow-up session here where we will discuss some your feedback, some questions that we will create that we can discuss around. And our idea is that you will be our ambassadors within your local contacts after having enrolled these trainings. You can change the slide, Marcelo. Thank you. And so sustainable development, it isn't really just about environment. It's about strengthening the communities, creating jobs, and fostering innovation. So by equipping businesses and municipalities and also innovators with the right tools and the strategies, we mean that you can all ensure long-term resilience and prosperities within your regions. So our e-learnings are designed to help small and medium-sized businesses and to integrate sustainability within their business structures so they can reduce costs and gain a competitive edge. And this is why also we really see you guys as valuable to promote the e-learning within your local contexts. By encouraging you and your fellow colleagues to do the training, we equip local governments with actionable solutions for example, climate adaptations, or it could be waste reduction, or even energy efficiency. You contribute to foster innovation by encouraging local entrepreneurs and startups to deepen their knowledge, which they would do through the training. So they can come to develop their own projects and maybe even green solutions to drive economic change. Because rural and coastal areas, they thrive when they are economically, socially, and environmentally stable and sustainable. Just to give you an example of what it could be, coastal municipality partners, they can partner up with local businesses to, for example, implement a circular economy strategy, which can then lead to reducing waste while also creating new jobs. You can change the slide, Marcelo, please.
Sorry for interrupting, just 1 second. Arne, you still don't have the option of seeing the presentation? No. Marcelo?
Oh, I'm afraid not, no.
To share the presentation in the chat so Arne has a chance to see it too.
Yeah, that would be a good thing, actually. Good idea, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Roya, sorry.
Yes, of course. So for these reasons, talent and innovation really matters. For communities to thrive, they need skilled professionals, they need entrepreneurs and forward-thinking businesses. It's important to explain for you guys towards your local stakeholders the multiple layers and dimensions of sustainability. Because sustainability isn't just another environmental goal or only an environmental goal. It's a key driver in attracting and retaining qualified talent and innovation and innovative solutions, really, which is in the interest of the municipalities and the local stakeholders. We see that companies and municipalities that prioritize sustainability, they become and are even more attractive to young professionals and purpose-driven talents and individuals. Green innovation, it creates opportunities for startups and small and medium-sized companies to develop sustainable business models. And sustainability-focused industries such as renewable energy, for example, or within green tech, they generate and require high-quality jobs and long-term career growth. Cities and regions that actually invest in sustainability, they have and they become magnets for investors, researchers, and industry leaders. In many cases that we have seen both on regional and international level, they have become hubs for innovation. So then it's also important to retain the local talent. What we know and what we've seen is that young professionals, they tend to stay in regions that offer a meaningful job, sustainable living conditions, and possibility of career growth. So here again, just to give you maybe an example how this can be carried out, and when you are in dialogue with your local stakeholders, it could be that the municipality partners up with universities and local businesses to launch a incubator of some sort. It could be a green tech incubator, for example, to support local startups working on renewable energy, or it could be a matter of urban planning. Next slide, please. So for this reasons also, a strong partnership is really crucial. Sustainability challenges, they cannot be solved in isolation. They require collaborations between governments, businesses, researchers, and within the community. So what we know is that strong partnership, they drive innovation, knowledge sharing, and impactful solutions that benefit everyone. And this is also very important to keep in mind while talking to your local stakeholders. And for this reason, then, the multi-helix model makes a lot of sense here, right? Because it connects key stakeholders. By encouraging cross-sector collaborations, we bring in the municipalities. What do? You provide policies, infrastructure, and possible funding for sustainable initiatives. But also the universities and research institutions, because they offer expertise, relevant research, and innovation to maybe developing cutting-edge solutions even. But then again, the businesses and entrepreneurs, they are the driving force in one sense, because they implement green or relevant technologies. They create sustainable products, and they drive the economic growth. But it's also not important to forget the communities and the local NGOs, because they are the ones that ensure that sustainability efforts are more inclusive, impactful, and the stakeholder actually is much aware of addressing local needs and what they are. Next slide, please. So sustainability, it is more than just reducing the carbon footprint. It's also very much about creating a positive and long-term social impact. Successful innovations, they should benefit people, communities, and future generations, and not just deliver results for today, here, now, but for also in the long term for the local population. And what ways can you then promote to integrate a social value within the innovation? One way is to ensure that sustainability initiatives address real local social challenges, such as equity, it could be a quality of life or a matter of accessibility. To create programs that can engage diverse communities and provides equal opportunities. But it's also very much about empower individuals with knowledge and tools, the right tools to change within their own communities. By also supporting green employment opportunities, because that contributes really to long-term economic and social well-being. Beyond all of this, it's important to remember and emphasize and carry out a dialogue about that measuring success is not just possible in financial terms, but it's also about seeing improvements within living conditions, the public's well-being, and community resilience. Again, to give you an example, what this type of project could look like within your municipalities or your areas of context. It could be a circular economy initiative, so to say, that also, again, partners with local businesses and social enterprises, NGOs within the community to provide job opportunities for newly arrived immigrants. Because by including them in a local project, the initiative not only gains more resources, but it also helps the newcomers to gain employment, develop skills, and integrate in the local society and economy. This way, this type of project, they foster both social and environmental sustainability, becomes cross-disciplinary. Next slide, please. So this is extremely important as well then, because our idea is that when you have enrolled in this e-learnings that we have created for municipalities and businesses, we regard you all as local sustainability ambassadors, right? You in your turn are supposed to promote and inspire from what you have learned and welcome your local stakeholders to also participate in or enroll in these courses. And you play a vital role in shaping the resilient and thriving within your communities, because you are the ones that can equip them with the right tools, data, skills, so they can initiate impactful projects and drive meaningful change. So strengthening collaboration, improving the access to resources, and fostering self-sufficiency, that enables long-term success, really. But also keep in mind here that clear communication and knowledge sharing, that truly amplifies their messages and creates stronger networks. You can change the slide, please, Marcelo. Yeah, and here just to give you an idea of what the e-learnings look like, and I believe that Marcelo will have a few examples in his slides as well. So once you enroll, we don't want it to be yet another online course that you end up not finishing. We have kept very much in mind to make it as interactive, inspiring, educating, and motivating as possible. As you can see in the picture with the yellow pictures in it, that's a bit what it looks like when you enter. You have a toolbox on your left side, so you can see how much of the training you have completed. And also, before you enter, you can see the entire toolbox of what you will cover. Then there are parts as well that you might be more even interested about, that you would like to deepen your knowledge about. Then you have the possibility to read more, as you can see in one of the pictures there. So we try to make it as accessible as possible and interactive. And those parts, I believe that Marcelo, you will talk a bit more about.
Perfect, thank you. So what I'm going to go through now is a framework called Refocus, where every letter stands for a specific type of thing that you should be thinking about while you're going through the e-learnings. It's a concept that we are using when we are creating them, but it's also a concept that I want to share with you so that you have it in mind when you're going through the e-learnings, so that we together can also like create, we can change things, we can make the e-learning even better. If you want to later on find out who is the maker of this concept, she's called Marla Bainbridge, and I will go through the different aspects of it soon. But in short, refocus stands for results, engagement, feedback, outcomes, chunking, unique learners, and spiraling. And I will tell you what each and every part actually means. So we'll go into what results is. So that's the start of when you're kind of getting into creating the e-learning. So you need to ask yourself some questions, as also the, I would say, like the in this multi-helix project, like what is the need of the student? So in this, the student in this regard would be the companies or the municipalities or civil society. So you need to kind of figure out what that need is by thinking about what the result is. So usually when we enroll in a course, we have an idea of what we want. No, we want to become a sustainability expert so that we can, for example, do an environmental management system. We want to be able to start an employment as a sustainability consultant or something like that. So that is what we want. But many times the student doesn't know what they need to be able to reach that end goal. So the result is the end of the stop, you could say. And the result is also part of, do we actually deliver what we promise? So if we then also go on to, you're going to talk there, Charlotte, you said with näringslivsutvecklare, the business developers. If we then say that they will end up in a certain type of result, then we also need to make sure that we deliver on that promise. So we need to make sure that these e-learnings also kind of fit into the narrative that we're telling. Usually how you can see it in e-learnings is the reviews, right? That's the result. That's when people say, I could do this when I was finished with this course. Or right now I feel like a sustainability star. So we also, in that regard, need to accommodate the student so that we can give them the right tools along the way. And that's also what this refocus concept is all about, that we deliver the knowledge and skill that's needed. And the way that you can also kind of reaffirm that is through some testimonial or review also at the end of it. So some sort of way that we get this information back, because we many times know what we want, but we don't always know what we need. So it's very important to consider that. The letter E stands for engagement, and it's all about creating different ways to make the student feel engaged when they're going through an e-learning. So we all like to know when we have done something right. Like, did we understand the concepts that we're going through? So you can give students like quick wins. It could be like a percentage that you see, how far have I gotten in the e-learning? Or you can also engage students by having gamification aspects where you feel like it's a sort of game and you start getting excited and you get like a dopamine rush from when you're going through an e-learning or when you're learning something new, like, wow, I'm actually further on than when I started, right? And then another way that we could also incorporate this, and what we're doing, is the storytelling part. Like, you could have storytellings inside of the e-learnings, and that's actually what we're discussing to do now further on, somehow incorporating that into the e-learnings, because we get more engaged when we feel like it actually hits home. So it is very important that we create these very like local narratives, stories that involve us into these e-learnings. A way to do this is gamification. It can be done physically, as the Linnaeus University in Sweden. They developed a gamified recycling house in Kalmar, and they did it together with a company called Kalmar Hem and Kretslopp Sydost. And the project was aiming towards recycling more and making it more engaging and enjoyable when you go and do your recycling. So what they did is to put up this like mirror facade that makes it a bit more interesting. It piques your interest. And then inside they have sensors that measure waste levels. And there are also quizzes when you go inside. So it kind of like tells you the questions and then you need to answer them right. So it could be like, how do you recycle this type of product, or like let's say a milk carton, the correct way because it has a plastic lid nowadays. So you have to answer the questions and then you can like level up inside this recycling house. So it makes the experience more engaging and gamified. And that's something that we could actually potentially do within this project. We could also, have sections of the e-learnings that are learning, and then you just have a more gamified version of it where people are like doing quizzes or something like that. And you kind of engage then either civil society or businesses. You can find an appropriate area to use this. And something that it also does then is when you're answering the questions in the right way, you get an immediate response if you did something good, and that makes you understand that, oh, I actually understand and learn something, which brings us into something called feedback. So feedback within this concept is divided into a few different aspects. One is self-check. Many times when you have like a university book and you're learning something, you might have questions at the end, which kind of quiz you on your knowledge to see if you actually know what you remember or know what you learned in the previous chapter. And we have some of these inside the e-learning as well to kind of make sure that the student then can quiz themselves and see, did I actually understand what I just read? Another way is to have just your regular feedback where you have like an evaluation or an idea box where the user can reach out to us in that case with questions in regards to the e-learning. So that could be, this button didn't work. That could be just a simple one, or it could be something more complex that like, I didn't really quite understand this part. It needs to be easier. So that makes us also be able to develop and create a more high value e-learning towards the people that are going through it, basically. And you can also have feedback where you kind of put people together, like these training and talks, for example, and you go through and discuss, and you can kind of evaluate it and make it better. We also have something called outcomes in the concept, which is it's different from result in the sense that the result is the end stop, and the outcomes are the stops along the way. So let's say you're going through a tram stop and it's like, the different stops, and each different stop is something new that you've learned. So the outcomes are, for example, after you've read a certain chapter, now I understand circular economy, or now I know how to engage the local community. And that's very important when you're like creating an e-learning as well, so that it doesn't become just like start and stop, but like you feel like there are sections where you can learn in each part. Then there is a concept, or within the concept, there is a part called chunking as well. Chunking, it's basically cutting up the e-learning into different parts so that it becomes more manageable. Because we all like to drink water, but none of us wants to drink water out of a fire hose. And the idea with that is that if there is just too much knowledge at like immediately, then it's very difficult to digest it. So one way to create a sort of balance is to spread the information evenly, create like within the e-learning parts where you can feel like you can go get a rest. Within our e-learning, you can start and stop it as often as you want. There is no real like you don't, you know, some e-learnings when you start it, you kind of have to finish it at the same time, or you have like a timer that's ticking. There is none of that in here, so you can actually take a break when you feel like you need to. You can take a 5-minute learning session, and then you just take a break, and then you come back to it, and that's very important. And why it then is important is for learning, like it becomes better for learning retention to have it in this form, and then it also adjusts it to a sort of learning curve in chunking, so that each and every section becomes gradually more difficult, because you don't want to feel like, oh, but I already know this. I don't want to read this section again, when you already feel like you've gotten past a certain difficulty, but you want to feel like, okay, I got this now. I want it to become a bit more difficult. That brings us on to also unique learners, and it's also tied into this chunking style as well. Everyone learns differently. Like some people need the visual aspects of learning to be able to take it in. Like you need a video that has like cute little you know, cartoons or something that are moving to learn. Or some people learn better from text or just like hearing it. Like some people can listen to a podcast while they're cooking. Some people feel like they can't focus while they're doing that. So we're all different, and it's very important to take that into consideration when you're also creating these e-learnings, because not everyone is going to learn the same. So here again, then it's like an idea for you then to think of how should we present the e-learnings in different formats as well, because we could take out a section that we feel is important for a certain group of businesses, for example, that these businesses want to learn more about circular economy, let's say. So we then could take out that part of the e-learning, and we could have it in a more workshop session where you know, you just reuse that material and you have it on a screen or something, and you do it in a more interactive physical form rather than digitally. This will then also facilitate for the learner that they feel also heard, that like there are more than one way for me to learn about this concept. Moving on to spiraling. Spiraling is basically where you go back and forth within the e-learning. Like you go in and you look at it again and you see like, okay, maybe we need to remove this part, even though I think that it's very important for people to learn this. Maybe it's not the most important thing that they should learn about the concept, because sometimes, me included, when you're very, very into sustainability, you want other people to know everything about sustainability because it's what you're passionate about, but that's not necessarily what is needed always inside an e-learning. So it's always good to look through what's in the e-learning to remove the things that are maybe not so useful in our context, so that we can take what's the most important, so we can tie the sack together, basically. That also kind of ties back to creating a strength in the e-learning, that you have what's most important. And another part about spiraling is also to sometimes reintroduce a concept once more, but in a more like sort of minimized way, just to make the person remember the concept that was brought up previously, because otherwise, if you just move forward without kind of having it in a little bit of a loop sometimes, you forget about the concept. So just mentioning it very briefly sometimes further on in the e-learning is a very good way to make it go into memory. So that's something that's also very important, to contain the knowledge. And the reason why then I've gone through this refocus with you is that when you're going through these e-learnings, I want you to have this in mind when you're going through it, because if we do this, we can also create the e-learnings that kind of sell themselves, because they become more high value. You feel like you know that you're learning something from it, and if we're going to create value for the people that are going through these e-learnings, it's very important that these things are kind of put in place now. And you know, when we started this whole project, we had certain ideas that might have changed throughout the course of time, and we are now in another phase of this project where we might realize that there are certain parts that need to be added or removed. And as such, this is a very good way to keep that high value type e-learning that people actually want to finish and feel is worth their time, because that is a problem with free stuff, sadly, that when people get something for free, they are less likely to finish it. So this is a good way to just keep it high value, I would say. That's actually the end of this. I was thinking we can maybe discuss some of the concepts together before we finish, and if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will have a follow-up discussion the 14th of February, where we're going to reflect on these questions that are underneath here. And they are then tied to these e-learnings that we have. So yeah, are there any questions about the refocus? I can go back to this slide so you can see all the different areas.
I just want to add that by, again, beginning of next week, we will sign you all up so you can do the trainings. Most likely maybe end of Monday or Tuesday, early morning. So you will have some time until I think the last slide said 14th. It said to have the follow-up session. So you'll have plenty of time to go through it within your own pace, and it takes around 3 hours in total, each training, more or less. Any thoughts? Questions? And in the very end of the last slide, you had the communication package as well. So I'm sure that we will share this PowerPoint for everyone to be able to access them as well.
Maybe I don't know if it's a question or a comment or maybe just a reflection. And I think it's maybe connected little to the results or expectations of results. I think what you also need to consider is when you, for instance, engage with a business, on what level of the business do you engage? I think from most of our experience, also talking about green transitions, there's very often a very huge gap between the board of directors and the people in production. So you need to consider very specifically who you are targeting with this, and also then what kind of change can you expect for the business as such.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's also why we wanted to bring this concept up, because it's also about thinking of, you know, the end user, like giving them what they want, basically, through figuring out what it is they need. And in the e-learning, we have, you know, the sustainability concepts at the level that we hope that they can understand it. But, you know, sometimes it depends on the companies and how far they are this journey, where I think that it's sometimes it's difficult for I've talked with a lot of small, medium-sized companies just this last year to think about sustainability when it's just good to have rather than a must-have. And they're just like kind of trying to survive. But as soon as new regulations come, they also kind of don't understand what they should do. Like they are very confused when time comes many times. They don't know if certain legislations are actually hitting them at all, and how to take action from that, basically, which is hopefully something that the e-learning can kind of also give a little bit of an insight into, because there are a lot more stricter EU regulations coming already. Many of the new companies that are getting started don't start without having sustainability in mind already as a start. So they understand, I think, the newer companies rather, what is needed to survive already from the start, because it's going to be very difficult to survive in the landscape, because we only have 5 more years until 2030. So things are just getting stricter and stricter, kind of.
And also for the small and medium-sized companies, or they will need to, as the legislation that Marcelo is mentioning, they need to report with the next years. So they need to prepare, which larger companies already need to do this year to report. And I would just say that also these e-learnings, think of them as tools, because, for example, we have created this more specific one for students within a school here in Sweden, the Sotenäs kommun, where you can do parts of it, and then you can have actual cases after a certain chapter or discussion points and such. So you will have access to it, I believe, and then go back and look again, see what parts can you use, where can you actually do like a workshop with the local businesses or within the municipalities as well. So just keep that in mind. It's not just something to enroll and finish, but actually use the tools that it provides you within
And
your...
I think also tying what I'm going to get to you on just in a second, to tie what Roya is saying as well, is we have that e-learning that is for schools. We could add gamified elements to that, so that it's possible to go out to the schools and have like a quiz together with the students where they learn about sustainability or something like that. That is possible. Arne?
Thank you. I would like to follow up on Michael's comment from just a few minutes ago. I would like to say something about the language of content specifically, because as a matter of fact, at the end of last year, I had a discussion with the head of a business network, also in some of the e-learnings that I did in another European project of mine. And well, the thing is, sometimes when we are in our kind of inner circles, we already tend to think that the language is already toned down to some degree, that it's already quite non-academic. But there were quite a few moments of realization in a way that this is still not the language that specifically small and medium-sized companies would use, that they would find useful and approachable. So I had the epiphany that we would have to test even more on our target groups, to just give them samples and make them look at them and say, is this the kind of language that you would be using, that you would find approachable at all? Because like I said, when we look at these things, we all come from very specific kinds of backgrounds. So we are not always the best judge of what a good target group specific language is. That is some of the experience that I've made. So and also it also brought up the question how broad target groups can be. So is it even possible to make materials that are suitable for like small craftsmanship companies and at the same time target sustainability managers and strategists with an entirely different kind of background? Is that even possible at all to design things that are suitable for this very broad range of people?
I think that ties back to this concept in a way as well. It's like keeping in mind the unique learners, like how do people learn? It also ties back to the feedback part where you listen in to what the student kind of needs or feels is difficult with what they are trying to learn. And also ties back to the outcomes as well, that like, do we feel like the person learned enough about this stop in the learning train, or what you want to call it. So that's why I wanted to present this framework, because I think that it's a very easy to understand framework that you can go back to and just like have a look at when you're going through the e-learning. Because if you yourself also feel that like, okay, the language is very difficult here, it needs to be toned down, then that's something that can be adjusted. If we feel that there is just like too much information in one area, then it can be downsized and made much more simple or left or even removed entirely, because it's in the end something that is supposed to give good results now. And we want everyone that has gone through the e-learnings to feel like they can perform the task that is the reason of them even going through the e-learning for sustainability in the first place, I would say. So yeah.
And the way that the way that we speak now throughout the workshop, it's because we also know that you also are very much aware of the terminology, of course. And this is something that we're trying to keep in mind when creating the e-learnings. It's to either also explain what some of these terms, such as circular economy and etc., actually implies. Because as mentioned, the companies will soon need to report, and then they need to be aware even of what this means. So, and when it comes to type of training we've done for the students, of course, we need to have a different language entirely. And the challenge maybe for us as adults is not to try to sound hip and cool, but still make it understandable for them, right? So it is, I would say it's a fun challenge for us. And that's why we also will appreciate your feedbacks once you have done the training. But it's very good, like you said, to keep in mind and think of different businesses, how they how accessible is the content of the workshops for them. We would be very happy to hear your feedbacks regarding that as well, because sometimes we just get blind, right, within our own fields. So
I'm
very
very much
valid
looking
points.
forward to exploring your materials. And this wasn't supposed to be a critique in any way. I just wanted to share some thoughts of mine. I wasn't under the impression that your language was in any way or form not target group specific.
But that's really true. And sometimes we forget that. And I mean, since we work so much with these trainings, I can personally say, I think it's quite a fun challenge to think about how do we make this as accessible and useful, these e-learning as tools really for the participants.
Any other thoughts or reflections?
Well, I just wanted to say, Arne, I think it's a very good reflection you did. And if Marcelo and Roya have anything else you think, besides what you said before, when evaluating to bring with us, and please let us know.
Yeah, so it will be at the end of the presentation, like the main questions that you can think about. And yeah, just have this framework in the back of your mind, so to speak, that like I think that maybe the most important ones are as I mentioned, the result. Like, what result do we want? What do we want the companies or the you know civil society to feel when it's finished, and then also maybe thinking about like chunking and unique learners, as Arne was saying there as well, that like if there's an area that's just like far too long, too much text or something, or it's just too complicated to understand for these companies, then we change it, because that's part of the continuous progress and improvement of what we are creating here together. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and I will send this over to you as well. And in another sense as well, I want you to keep this in mind as well, because I think that is such a fun way to make something very physical and interesting within a municipality, where you actually had a university collaborating with a company and a municipality to create this recycling station that's totally like different from any experience I've had when I've gone to throw the trash. So that is something that's possible to create within this project, I think, as well. These more innovative thoughts of how we teach the learnings of this project as a whole. So yeah, if there are no more questions or reflections, I think we can stop there, and can reach out to me if there is something, and I will send over the presentation to Emma, and then she can share it to the rest of you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, was interesting.